Hey guys, this is an animated review of the Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. I really love this book because Dave takes a no-nonsense approach to getting out of debt and saving. It's very simple, but a lot of people have trouble following it because it does require a lot of time and patience. Throughout the book, Dave repeatedly states, not to fall for one of those quick get-out-of-debt schemes because they are schemes. Don't fall for those cheesy, as seen on TV, advertisements about debt consolidation because those are pretty much going to get you nowhere. Getting out of debt is really going to come down to your budgeting, spending wisely, and making consistent payments over time. You're not going to get out of it overnight, unless you hit the lottery or something. And before we get into the content of the book, first thing you need to do is to write out a budget, look at your income, and then all of your expenses. Now, once you figure out your income, your expenses, you calculate it all out, go ahead and keep your receipts for about a month, and then at the end of the month, review where your money's going, and I bet you're going to be surprised at what you're spending your money on. When it comes to debt, I do have some personal experience. At one time, I was over $40,000 in debt with nothing to show for it, by the way, and it definitely sucks. It's definitely depressing, and it messes with your head, and it's a huge weight on your shoulders. Once you get out of debt, you'll look back on it and you'll realize it's really not a big deal. Your mind gets so consumed by it. And anyways, it sucks big time, boo-hoo. But it's really not a big deal. Just buckle down and do what you need to do. And just remember, it doesn't define who you are or what your worth is. It's just a temporary situation, and you can get out of it. So, without further ado, let's go through the 7 steps of Dave Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover, a proven plan for financial fitness. Step 1 is to save $1,000. This is your initial emergency fund. It's just an initial cushion to kind of give you a little bit of feeling of financial security. It's really for those emergencies that pop up, so you don't have to put even more on your credit card when you're already trying to get out of debt in the first place. Because I think we can agree that if you're trying to get out of debt and then you have to put more on your credit card because of an unforeseen emergency that pops up, it's very discouraging. So that's basically the whole purpose behind the initial emergency fund. So an example of an emergency is maybe your car breaking down, you have to take it to the shop, pay a couple $100 to get it fixed. If you do dip into that initial emergency fund, you have to pay back into it until you reach $1,000 again. And then also just keep in mind, a new outfit or a new pair of shoes that just came out or a new pair of Jordans, that's not an emergency. I know some people think it is, but it's not. So once you have your initial emergency fund in the bank, you're going to want to move on to step number 2, and that's to pay off all your debt, except for your house if you own one. That comes later. So this is all of your debt, your credit cards, your car payment, your student loan. You're going to focus all of your efforts on paying off your debt. Now, which debt do you start paying off first? Well, it's best to start paying off your debt with the smallest amount. Now, fiscally, you might say, hey, it's better to pay off the one with the largest APR because, financially, it makes more sense over the long term. But you have to take in the psychological factor behind it as well. So you want to start with the smallest debt first. And once you pay that off, you're going to build up a lot of momentum. Once you pay off one debt and then you take that extra money towards the next debt and you kind of get this snowball effect going, and then before you know it, you're paying them all off. So yes, maybe fiscally it's better to pay the one with the largest APR first, but it's very hard for people to do when they don't see a lot of progress. So go for that smallest debt first, build up some momentum, and then keep going. So this step can take a long time, so it's important not to get discouraged. Just keep plugging away at it, and most importantly, do not go into more debt. Try to live below your means and don't spend money on things that you can't buy flat out with cash. All right, so moving on to step 3, this is when you're going to bulk up your emergency fund. You're going to want to save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses. So for example, if you get fired and you need to cover all the bases for 3 to 6 months, how much are you going to need? So you need to consider your mortgage, your gas, utilities, food, and the like. This could range, depending on your expenses, from $5,000 to $10,000 or even $15,000. And keep in mind, at this point, you shouldn't have any debts left, so you won't have to pay for those anymore. You shouldn't have any credit card payment, car payment, student loans. That should all be paid off, except for your house if you have one. And the whole point of having a large emergency fund is if you do lose your job because they took your job or something, you'll be able to pay off those expenses without having to go into debt. The key is not to go back into debt once you're already out. So at this point, you have an emergency fund, you've paid off all your debt, now you need to start thinking about the future. So step 4 is to invest in your future, into your retirement. You want to save at least 15% of your household income into a retirement fund of some kind, whether that be a Roth IRA, traditional IRA, 401k. So let's just go through a real quick example here. Let's say you earn $40,000 a year, which is close to the average American household income, and you save 15% of that. That's about $6,000 a year, or $500 per month. Now, if you pay that in for 30 years at 10%, that is equal to $1 million. This is just a hypothetical example. I'm not a financial advisor, but the power of compound interest is how people get rich. So you want to use that to your advantage. People don't get rich by keeping money under their mattress. You need to invest it. And this book covers a little bit of that, but it doesn't really go into a lot of detail. So I'd recommend another book on actually where to invest. And, if you want to use like a low-cost index fund, or if you want to be riskier, I'd recommend looking into other books for that. I think the main focus of this book is more about getting out of debt and kind of the basic steps on what to do beyond that. All right, moving on to step 5, you're going to want to start saving for your kids' college fund if you have kids. If you don't, well, congratulations, you can skip this step. So if you do have kids, you want to start looking at saving for college. You can look into a 529 college savings fund or an ESA, which is an education savings account. And these are special accounts that give you certain tax breaks because you're saving for education. So I'm sure you're familiar with all the news lately about college debt. There's no reason to go into debt for college, guys. Don't do it. If your child is going into college soon, then you can look into grants or scholarships. Thousands and thousands of grants and scholarships go unclaimed every year. So how much to save for your kid's college fund depends on how old they are, really. But Dave recommends if you start at a young age, you can start saving about $150 to $200 per month. And by the time they're 18, they're going to be able to go to any college in the United States that they want. All right, so now that you're debt-free, you paid off all your debts, you have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months, you're investing at least 15% of your household income, and you're saving for your kids' college fund, it's time to move on to step 6, which is to pay off your home if you have one. And all that extra money that you have should go towards your house payment now. Try and pay it off early if you can. The more you can pay up front, the more you're going to be able to save in the long run. Not paying tens of thousands of dollars extra in interest. And finally, step 7, you're going to want to start building wealth and giving. So find a way to invest. If you want to keep it simple, just go for a low-cost index fund like the S&P 500. Or if you have a lot of free time, you can get more into the investment world. Just find a way to invest. And finally, find a way to give back. Find a way that's fulfilling to you personally. I do believe that you should start giving from step 1 because I personally believe in the universal law of karma. What you give, you receive. So in a nutshell, those are the 7 steps to get out of debt quickly and start saving for your future. It's super simple, guys. A lot of people have issues with it though because it requires, as I said in the beginning, it requires a lot of time and patience. It's not a get out of debt quick scheme. You really have to buckle down, focus on getting out of debt, making consistent payments, budgeting, all those good financial practices. And I'll tell you personally, this is pretty much the plan that I use to get out of debt, and it worked for me, so it can definitely work for you. Just remember, it doesn't have to be overly complicated to get out of debt. It can be as simple as this, as the 7 steps outlined in this video. Just remember, it's a temporary situation. You can get out. You just got to be persistent, keep plugging away at it. Keep that momentum going. If you fall off the horse, get back up on it. If these 7 steps appeal to you, go ahead and pick up Dave Ramsey's book. And if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, guys.